Welcome to the Career Coffee Chat podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Urban, certified career strategist and executive coach, removing career roadblocks so you can achieve more impact, influence, and income. Welcome to Career Coffee Chat Live. I'm your host, Aaron Urban. I'm very excited to share with you today how to take charge and create change, not chaos. In this world, things feel a little out of control. I don't know if you agree with me, but I definitely get that from my clients and those I interact with on a daily basis. And this leads to stress. Now, I'm really excited to have Tonia Cordi on the show today to share an integrated process for you to meet your intentions and goals aligned with your values. Now, some of the things we'll be talking about today is how to renew yourself with often overlooked tools for success, revitalize your life by owning your impact and creating boundaries. Ooh, are we good at that? I don't know. I'm still working on that. I don't know about you. And a Rescript for a better future with more peace and productivity. Now, Tonia applies her background in education, arts, philosophy, psychology to create an integrated process for individuals to meet their intention, goals, and values. Organizing your inner and outer world allows you to become more present, focused, and better able to make decisions. And without further ado, I'd love to welcome Tonia to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you so much. I love the way you described what I do.
Yes. I'm an expert. No. I want to say hi to Jesse Bell, too. It's a happy, hot, and humid Tuesday from Jesse in Fulshire, Texas. Yes. I don't know, Jesse. It wasn't quite 100 degrees or 100% humidity when I went out this morning.
Oh, my goodness.
And Tonia, you're tuning in from Toronto, Canada. Yes. Yeah.
And so surprisingly, it hasn't gotten hot just yet. Mm-hmm. Typically this time of year, we are hitting, I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but 30, 35, which it's hot for me. I know probably not as hot for you, but it's a little bit cooler this year, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah, we're jealous. We're all jealous. Well, tell us, I'd really love to know, what made you transform into someone who helps young lives thrive and then now helping more adults thrive, and particularly with the focus you have, and not only organization, but creating that work-life balance in a healthy and productive way?
It's definitely evolved. I always loved children, and I think it boils down to human psychology and behavior, and just being fascinated why some people behave one way and then other people behave another way. And I think what originally got me into psychology was, why is it that some people change and some don't? That is like the pinnacle piece that really interested me. Mm-hmm. And, I went into education. I loved helping. I loved watching people grow and thrive. And it wasn't just teaching, it was watching the individual blossom. And not just that they're learning something, but them as a human being blossom to the best that they could be. And so when I switched to organizing, I still had that psychology mind. Yeah. And when I went into people's homes, and that's how I had started, I was really looking at helping them change, but they didn't think that's why they hired me.
Little did they know.
No. And so there was a lot of resistance. It didn't work until I was more clear on my process, and I developed a 5-step process to work with people. And I was more clear on my website and my social media that it's about change, and I help people change. And, and so then, when people approached me, and even my intake process was filtering whether or not people were self-aware and if they wanted to change, because there also wasn't a good fit. So that evolved.
I bet. So what excites you most about what you do right now?
So right now I'm kind of segmented in 2 areas. I'm helping people still with organizing their life, so individual clients. And then I'm also doing webinars, seminars with organizations to help with, I'm going to call it work-life boundaries.
Yeah.
Because there's everything's blurred in our culture, and it was already blurred, but now it's gotten blurred even more.
Oh.
And with that, there's no beginning and no end. And people it's just this stream of actions without like a hard stop and a conscious, okay, what am I doing next? Right. And everything is just mixed and blended. And then people are wondering why they're burnt out. So for me, it's not just about helping people get their home organized and be better with time management. It's about really checking in, as it's always been with my process, but now even more. And it's like, what are your values? Like, what is your life purpose? What are you focusing on now? Because your values can change as you learn things, as you have different experiences. Your values can evolve, but also what you're focusing on. Right. And so that's the focus right now, is really getting people to step back, reassess, do a nice little inventory to see what's going on and see what needs to change, especially around mental health and life balance. Yeah.
So you're not just organizing homes.
No.
Oh, no. This goes much, much deeper.
Oh, yes.
And it's much more impact on a person's development and growth as a human, as you becoming your best self. That's what truly sounds like. You're helping people find what I call their zone of genius. Right?
Exactly. And just awareness of their patterns, awareness of their attachments, awareness of beliefs. Like, think of it this way. If you were going to a therapist once a week and talking about your life problems, the therapist is going to be like, okay, they take everything in a sense for face value because you're there telling them that. Right. But when you go into someone's home, you really see what's going on. Right. And so then I can ask the questions to be like, well, what's this all about? And in a non-judgmental way, like everybody has their stuff. And so I ask the questions, and then the person's like, oh, I never thought of it like that. Right. Because they never had anyone go in their home and question the way that they're doing things, but also how their home is a reflection of what's going on the inside.
Yes. I wonder how many of you tuning in are having maybe like, ooh,
I don't want her coming over.
Well, it's true. How we keep our environment is a direct reflection of our mental tone or our mindset, our belief system, our mental patterns. And some of it is learned patterns. It's how, what we're familiar with, our familial structure that we're, then propagating into our current experience. Right. And know that you don't have to, right? And some people just do it because that's what they know, and that's more of a fixed mindset. But being able to open up to the possibilities of, hey, there's another way of thinking. And if you are doing or exhibiting certain types of behavior in the home, what are the chances are that's perpetuating and elsewhere in your life? So I'd love to hit you with this common myth. You ready?
Yes, please.
A disorganized desk is a intellectual mind. Is that true?
I think this is more opinion-based than necessarily researched. I did have a woman who does like neurological adjustments write a blog for me, and she talked about how the brain doesn't function as well if there's disorganization. So there is that component. I think that people who are extremely creative usually tend to struggle with being organized. So I think it's more of a reflection of that someone who's a big thinker, they're creative, they're jumping from this idea to this idea to this idea, well, then that's reflected in their physical space. And then people who tend to be extremely creative also tend to not want structure, because then they think it stifles their creativity when it actually doesn't. I'm the odd creative one. I'm extremely creative, but then I'm also very organized. So I'm this weird.
I am as well. I mean, this painting is one of my paintings that I've done.
Oh, nice.
I love to write as well. So when I do have that space, I love to express myself creatively, even if that's just gardening. I love to do that. And on the flip side, if my house is messy, I can't focus. It's just distracting. It makes me feel, I almost have a panic attack when things are cluttered. And I don't mean to be obsessively in a line. I mean, there's too much of
yes,
organization.
I agree.
Like, you'll be seeing the obsessive, the little bit OCD. That's not what I'm going for here, but just things that go into their place and not mess around, so you're not even quite sure, where is the table? It's underneath all the envelopes. Because my husband and I are very different that way. He's what I call a piler. So whatever comes in from the mailbox ends up on the table or whatever surface is handy. And I'm just like, ah. So I'd love to hear from you too, if you're tuning in now or later. How does this resonate with you? And are you someone who leans into organization, or are you someone who resists organization, and why? So I'd love to hear from you for tuning in an hour later, what your natural proclivity is. No judgment, but just interesting to know, because different people have different ways of being, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's something that's not necessarily taught. Like
Mm-hmm.
for me, I did grow up in a home that was quite organized. So it was just second nature. And then, I had friends that I would go to their house and I'd be like, what's going on here? Like, I don't understand. Right.
Yeah.
And then that's what they were exposed to. So then they never learned. I had one client that didn't know how to fold their clothes. No one ever taught them how to fold their clothes. And so I was like, okay, do you want to? Like, let's see the difference if you just put stuff in drawers versus if you put stuff in drawers folded. And they were like, oh my goodness. And it completely changed them. They're like, I have a connection to my belongings and my clothing that is a reflection of my self-worth. And that's the connection they made with this stuff that they were going through and like their personal journey.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very eye-opening for them because they had more self-respect for their environment. And then they felt like they had more respect for themselves.
That's very, very true. I've recently had some work done on my home, and the guys that came over here are great, very polite, very nice, very helpful, very good at what they do. And yet they still did things like trample my flowers and plants.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, wow, it's a reflection of where they are in their life journey, that when one does not respect oneself or maybe one situation, maybe they have a mindset about where they are in life and how that comes out in certain micro actions. It's very telling. Now, other people would be like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. That's so disrespectful. I don't think they intended to do it. I don't think they saw it. And that's what a mindset like this can do for someone or not do for someone, because when we are in a place where we're lack-minded, which means not that you're lacking a mind, but you're focused on lack versus abundance. So the more you focus on lack, the more you see lack, the more your brain goes, oh, that must be what you want. So we'll show you more of it. And it's this self-perpetuating cycle instead of focusing on, say, abundance, for example. And that's one of the powers of being grateful and having a gratitude practice. Yes. It's not that you're, I don't know, just as a feel good, right? It's not just feel good, and that's part of it. It does make you feel better, but it also perpetuates the right cycle and the right micro actions.
Exactly, and I couldn't agree more. It's, I think too, people aren't present. That's the other part of it. Because if I'm not present and I'm in my mind and I'm just like this, I'm not actually going to see the mess. I'm not going to see that I just stepped on some flowers. And the other piece too is some people, I watch people smoke a cigarette and then just throw it on the ground.
Right.
They don't care. They're not happy individuals, so they don't care that their actions are
damaging their body, and then they'll damage the environment.
Exactly.
Right. The same thing with, now for those of you who've listened to me before and have followed my show for some time, you may be aware that my father is a recovering alcoholic. I'm very proud of him. He's almost 2 years now clean, and he's 70 something. Better late than never.
Good for him.
He's been an alcoholic all of his adult life, entire life. And the reason why my mother and he divorced him when I was 2. I mean, so I was just like, I'm not doing that. I'm not bringing my daughter up around that. Just seeing someone who has an addiction and then how they interact with their environment. Before myself and my uncle did intervention, which put him firmly on the wagon, if you will. I would go see him, and his place was just, a disaster. Things were in boxes. Things were on the floor, dirty, mold. I mean, it was just, it was hard. It was hard to see that, but you knew where it was coming from because he didn't respect himself. He was abusing his body. So it also showed in the environment. And now, totally different.
Really? And I see that. I see that. It's interesting that you share that. Thank you for sharing, because it's a huge problem in our culture. I think people assume that, if you're drinking or especially here now that marijuana is legal, that, oh, it's no big deal. It's a social thing. And I don't think people realize that it's used as a coping mechanism and how prominent addictions are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of one piece. The other piece is that I see it all the time. The individuals who struggle with life management,
Right.
the majority of the time are struggling with an addiction that they haven't addressed,
Mm-hmm.
that they haven't gotten help for. And then I've had individuals who have openly shared that they're in recovery,
Right.
and I'm helping them get their life in order. And it's so rewarding because they want to change, and they realize that they never learned, that they don't know how to do that self-care, that they don't know how to do a routine of laundry and whatnot. Like they literally don't know how to keep up. And
Right.
so that I love working with clients like that because they have acknowledged, look, what I was doing wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
It's not healthy. There's a better way. And I'm open to getting help and learning and changing.
That's
So
fantastic.
I love it's, I love
That's
that part of my
fantastic.
work.
Yeah. Also interesting, when I would see my father before the intervention and he started becoming, clean and sober, everything was in boxes. He hadn't addressed anything. And that sent a very clear message. So one of the reasons he was where he was all of his adult life, because he had never addressed what was in those mental boxes.
Yeah.
Never addressed it. And there was a lot in the middle boxes. So having my uncle, his brother, be a part of the intervention and helping him unpack literally and figuratively
Wow.
boxes. And he started going through everything, and mentally and literally. And I see that when people are ready to do that and do that house cleaning, if you will, that's when they're actually ready to move on. And I don't know that people really give it the impact, like really understand the impact of the physical and the mental and how those are interconnected also in behaviors, right? When someone is convinced that the way they are is just the way they are and there's no other way to be, then you're just perpetuating the same. It's very interesting. I gave one of my very first in-person speaking events on last Friday.
Yay! Oh, that must have been fantastic. That must have been amazing.
Wonderful. And so much energy in the room, which is fantastic. One of the things I shared was what you expect in your life equals your experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the mindset, what we've determined our life is, or expectations of whatever situation we're going to, whether it's people or a situation, or take, for example, someone shared with me the other day, I feel like I have to prove myself around these much older men. So the young lady, she's very well versed in her profession. She obviously doesn't have to prove anything, yet she feels like she does. So we had a really healthy conversation around, okay, where is that coming from? And what is your relationship to that age group? And how does that reflect, so these little things, what is it really telling us about ourselves? Even the words we choose are immense data.
Yeah.
So a lot of data points, and you're working on the physical outgrowth in the home and the office. Do you go into office environments as well?
Not really. I like more home office I've done. I would love to do offices. That would be fun, because then for me, it's like seeing how the system works and to get all the working parts together of all the individuals and whatnot. However, no, and I agree. Our thoughts create micro behaviors. And so people believe that they have to do something a certain way.
Right.
Or their environment is a certain way.
Yeah. And we have some I'm going to mispronounce this. Some Theritha, I think is how you pronounce this. Please correct me if I'm wrong. She says, but without money, how can we get the experience? And I'm assuming you're talking about in career or life experiences when I mentioned earlier, what we expect is what we experience. So I'll give you an example that may help you. When we see in our corporate structures those people who get ahead and we're just bemused, like, how in the world is this person moving up the ladder? They're a complete jerk. They don't care about other people. They are not a nice person. Like, how in the world, they're completely all about themselves. How in the world does this person move up? I just don't understand. Well, what they expect is what they experience. Within reason, to be fair. I mean, this is probably going to play itself out elsewhere. But they continue to move up the ladder because they're firmly convinced that, yes, I deserve this. This is what I should get. And then they're putting themselves out there. Yes, this is what I should get. This is I deserve this. And chances are they're articulating their goals and getting to know the people because this is what they expect, is what they deserve, versus someone who's relying on working really hard and hoping someone will notice. Right? So just something as simple as that is driving micro actions and micro behaviors. Another example I have for you is talking to a client a few weeks ago, and when he actually articulated he wasn't getting anywhere in his career, he wasn't seeing any results, he was not moving up, he was totally miserable. He said, well, one of my pet phrases is, nothing ever good happens to me. Yeah. So I really encourage those of you tuning in now or later, what are your pet phrases? What are your narratives? What are your beliefs that you're saying to yourself, and how is that playing out in your life?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And how you spend your time, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because how you spend your time is a reflection of what you're telling yourself. Oh, I have to do this, or I have to do that, or I don't have time.
Right. Hear that all the time. How many people have said, I don't have the time? You actually do have time. It's just how you spend it, how you focus your intent on it. Yeah. Fabienne shares, this is why organizations struggle to align their mission, values with each individual's values, experiences, and beliefs. All this combination of elements ultimately shapes an organization's culture. You're right. You're right. Yeah, individuals shape an organization's culture. And, they can have all the mission, vision, value statements they want. It's the actions that tell people what to prioritize.
And trying to create a culture of growth mindset without it being forced fun. That's another challenge, right?
Forced fun. I like that.
Someone said that in a meeting one day, and I was like, oh, I like that. I'm going to use that.
That's really good. It
is. Good. I can't take it, but yeah.
That's really good. Yeah. Forced fun, which may not or be fun to a lot of people, depending on the work style. Mm-hmm. Another one I love is toxic positivity.
Yeah. Being realistic. It's like using that mindset, but then being realistic with what's in front of you. Because life is challenging. And I think, a lot of what I do is really helping people be courageous, because they have to change, and that requires discomfort. Mm-hmm. And we live in such a quick fix society that there's a problem. Okay, I just want this quick solution. And I'm all about processes. Everything is a process. Change requires time. And it requires you to be uncomfortable and vulnerable.
I'd like to challenge that.
Yeah? Ooh.
Yeah. Just think about the words you said. Change requires you to be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. How much does that perpetuate in our society that change is hard, change is uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Right? We tell ourselves this a lot. In actuality, the right change is very comfortable. You're actually creating ease.
Yeah.
And through the process of creating ease, the discomfort may come in letting go of being attached to the uncomfortableness of the living. Like, so if they're living in a place that's not serving them, it's sabotaging them, that's the true discomfort. And then moving away from that is actually moving away from the discomfort and towards something that's easier or effortless, more authentic.
And better for them.
Right.
I would say it comes from working with people who have a lot of anxiety, and the change means the unknown. And the discomfort comes from, fear. I don't know what this is, right? I don't know. It's the unknown, and change is something new and different. And so the brain gets used to that comfort of doing the same thing all the time. And so if it's something new, for a lot of people that I work with, that's very stressful, that newness, because they need to feel safe. So yeah, I definitely agree that framing it in a way where it could be empowering and exciting, that's important.
And it is, because as Shakespeare said, nothing is neither good nor bad except the thinking that makes it so. So when you look at change in of itself, we just step back from our judgment around it, or our fears that are associated with it, or whatever anxiety we want to place on it. Change itself is neither good nor bad, does not have a connotation or a judgment there. It just is. It's something different.
Yeah.
It's when we interject our mindset, our belief structure, our assumptions on the event or the situation, that's when things become either fearful or good or bad or exciting or anxious.
Resistance, or a lot of
Right,
resistance.
right, right. It's the person, not the thing.
Yeah,
And I don't know that people recognize that. They give so much power to things and situations and disempower themselves.
yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Mm-hmm.
And like not seeing it as an opportunity to really just grow and be more connected to themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because people have created these behaviors that really are kind of just creating walls for them,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to opening doors.
Right, right. I love, if you don't mind, if you can share with us some of the top indications that there's a wall being created or a roadblock someone's creating for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and what might be one step they could take to start to clear that roadblock.
Like the work you do, it's the language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get a lot of excuses. So when there's a lot of excuses,
Mm-hmm.
there isn't a willingness to own the situation
Right.
and be like, actually, you do have control of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially around anxiety, it's first identifying, well, what is the situation? Is this a realistic fear?
Right.
And, how can you approach it in a different way?
Mm-hmm.
And how can you be open to challenging yourself and actually facing that situation and exposing yourself instead of avoiding it? Because I find that people put a wall up and then they don't want to deal with it. So then they don't actually address that fear or that situation. Mm-hmm. And that creates a bigger and bigger wall, because then the brain goes, oh, well, guess what? You feel comfortable not facing that. We're going to put up a bigger alert next time you come in that situation. And then the anxiety grows. Mm-hmm. So I think it's always about kind of stepping back, regardless if it's anxiety, resistance, being in a stressful situation, whatever the situation may be. For me, it's always about stepping back, assessing the situation, and going, okay, what do I need? And what can I do to change this situation? And slowly break down that wall. It doesn't have to. Some people are like a switch and they have the realization and then that's it, they're done. Whereas other people, I find they need that slow peeling back to feel comfortable and safe, and then they can overcome that barrier that's been in front of them.
Right. Different people process differently. If someone is more driven, what's next, maybe a little impatient, a very action-oriented person that once they have the realization, okay, yeah, we're done. Next. Someone who does like to process a little bit more, maybe they like to think about things, really dive into the weeds, or second guess themselves sometimes. Those people tend to take a little bit longer, just to noodle on it, process it, try things, and it needs to be a slower unraveling, is what I call it, a little bit of an unraveling of the spaghetti.
Yes, I agree.
Because people will come to you and go, here's all my stuff. And it's like, you're like, oh, okay. So let's pull this string. What does this do? Okay.
Exactly.
What does that bring up for you? So yeah, you mentioned something earlier. I'd love to circle back to that if it's okay.
Sure.
Where we get so caught up in being busy. Now, let's just look at our society and culture. What does it applaud? Being busy, right? The more busy you are, obviously you're more productive and successful and amazing, and all the things, right, that come with being busy. So our society, particularly in America, applauds people for saying, oh gosh, I'm just so busy, and you're always busy doing things. And we don't necessarily give the value of just pausing and not filling it with something. Like, don't look at your phone.
Exactly.
Yeah. You have a minute, you're waiting in line. One of my psychologist friends, Rob, he goes, look, he said, best thing you can do is we wait, right? We wait. Maybe we're in traffic. Maybe we're in a line. Maybe we're waiting for something. Maybe we're waiting for something to load, whatever. There's pauses in life that come naturally. We tend to fill it with something, because what do? We grab our phone. And then we stick it in front of our face and we look at YouTube. Although if you're looking at the replay of this show, that's fine. podcast. That's fine. I'm kidding. Kind of. So what we do is we fill it with something. We don't allow ourselves just to be.
Yeah.
And the power of that just being, what would you say you're seeing?
In my own experience, or just helping people shift to that?
Yeah, helping people do process that. Yeah.
I definitely think for myself, I think it was always in my nature to be more like that. I haven't had a TV for over 10 years. I don't have Netflix. And people are like, what do you do? And I can't, I always have a hard time answering that question, because I'm like, I make my dinner. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I go for a walk. I talk to people on the phone. People don't really talk on the phone now. They text. So for me, I will just lie down and just reflect, or go to the park and do that. And I think it's really important to have, excuse me, getting over a cold there. I really think it's important to have that time. And there's different types of rest. And one of them is just like resting the mind and doing nothing. And it has taken me a number of years, because I will grab the phone. You know, now I work on leaving it in another room and taking apps off of my phone. I can't check my email anymore on my phone. I took that off, because then it's like, well, why am I doing that? Like, what is it that I'm actually feeling? Oh, is it that I want to connect with someone? Okay, well, then maybe I'll call someone instead.
Right. What are we distracting ourselves from?
Exactly. So for myself, it's been an ongoing process of, am I doing something to distract? And what is it that I want to do right now? Do I want to just do nothing? And that's okay. Right? Nice. I love Harriet saying that she loves talking on the phone. I love it.
She says, I love talking on the phone. I know. It's so funny. I have a few friends who are so used to texting, and if I call them, they're like, what's wrong?
And that's
like, I just want to talk to you. Either I'm driving somewhere. Certainly not texting and driving.
No.
So I just want to talk. Is that okay? Oh yeah. And then we have a great conversation. But it's like,
it's a surprise. It's a surprise.
Yeah.
I would say with clients, it's teaching them to slow down, especially when I do, webinars and workshops. Like that's a big topic of having that internal reflection time. And I am so I really push morning and evening routines. And to me, it's a time to be by yourself and to have that inner reflection. And there's no set morning, evening routine. It's whatever works for you. Is it journaling? Is it reading? Is it going for a walk? Is it a combination of maybe 3-4 things together? And, if there's time, and I'm like that, if I have, depending on what my schedule is like, I'll do maybe 4 things. But if I don't have as much time, what's the one thing I need to do that morning to get in that right frame of mind and get my mind set in place and focused and be intentional? And I think that's the other thing. It was funny. Someone the other day, my friend was like, I hate when people say I'm busy. She's like, I hate that word. And I said, I know. Because part of that to me is people don't want to connect. And it means they have to be vulnerable. Because if I'm go, 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 that means I don't have to spend time with you and tell you what's really going on. I don't have to open up because I'm avoiding my emotions because I'm running around with my head cut off. But if I slow down, that means I'm going to feel, and I don't want to feel.
Right. And busyness is an addiction. And it's also a coping mechanism. You were talking about coping mechanisms and addictions earlier. And busyness is one of those. So many people are addicted to being busy, and not necessarily because they want to be busy. It's because they don't want to deal with not being busy. They don't want to deal with their own thoughts and maybe the boxes that they haven't unpacked mentally or literally. They just don't want to deal with that. They're unhappy. They're miserable in their careers. Maybe something's broken in their life. They're just not happy, and they don't want to deal with that, so they get busy.
Exactly.
That's not helping. You're just either delaying or putting off, or worse, perpetuating the issue if you're avoiding these things. And the best thing you can do is reflect and really dive in and go, hey, look, what's going on? What's broken? What is in my power to influence? And what tiny shifts do I need to make? It doesn't have to be a reinvention of self. What tiny shifts do I need to make to maybe see something better here? Or whom do I need to talk to? There's tons of support and people you can talk to. A lot of my clients who are overachievers, by the way, typically by nature. I know, because I'm a recovering perfectionist myself. they feel bad about talking to someone like I'm bothering them. I'm going to bother them. No, you'd be amazed how many people truly want to help you.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And if you don't feel like there's somebody out there who can help you, well, send me a note.
Oh yes, and
Tonia a note.
yes,
Right?
exactly, because that's my passion, and I think that people tune out, right?
Yeah, and Harriet mentioned, being busy might mean a person doesn't know how to say no, and that's also true. You're absolutely right, Harriet. Well, there's a lot of people who, in fact, I was working with somebody just the other day. She goes, I get anxious when I think about saying no or setting boundaries in a relationship. I get anxious because I don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. I don't, she's such an empathetic soul, and she's like, I'm really concerned about them. I was like, okay, where are you showing up here?
That's a good question. I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah. And if you decide to say yes and don't maybe set those boundaries, are you truly doing that person a favor?
Because we're going to teach them.
Right. Are you able or to show up 100%, or you could be creating more harm? So instead of looking at, okay, I'm going to hurt this person's feelings, maybe we look at it in a way that says, okay, I'm actually I care about you by saying no, because I won't be able to show up 100%. I've told someone that before. They really wanted me to take on this. It was just a little mini side project. I said, you know what? So I'd love to, John, but if I say yes, I won't be able to show up 100%, and that's not doing you in a service, and it's not doing this particular project a service either.
Exactly.
And he goes, you know what? I really appreciate you being honest. He goes, there's a definitely art to saying no. Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Harriet. He says, I'm working on setting boundaries too. So, and it's always a work in progress, being able to understand that, one, people are much more forgiving than you give them credit for, and two, people are much more understanding than you may realize. And if you're just really honest,
I was just going to say that, if you're honest, then people, and that's what I always tell people, whether it's personal or professional, like, just tell me where you're at, tell me what's going on. You'll never meet someone so understanding, but you have to at least tell me, because if you don't, then I don't know.
Right.
And so that's huge. And I think with boundaries, it's really about the self-respect. And like, if everything's all blurred, well, like you said, where are you?
Yeah.
If there's no beginning or no end.
You'd be amazed how many times I say those words in a coaching conversation. Like, okay, great, this is a wonderful goal we're working on. Where are you in this conversation? Right? And often people are like, wow. So for those of you either tuning in now or later, when was the last time you showed up for you? And how many times do we show up for other people, or for our work, or for kids, or for whatever, right? Our responsibilities, or those things that we make ourselves do or think that we should be doing, whether or not they're actually value add. You're showing up for all that, but are you really showing up for yourself? Right? And if you're not showing up for yourself, are you actually then reciprocating and actually showing up as who you really want to be in all those other situations?
I agree. And it's interesting because this brings to mind when I've worked with couples where the person I'm working with is blaming the partner that the home is a mess. And it's like, we can't do anything with them. You have enough belongings in this home that if you decluttered and organized them, it would make a big difference, right? And once they start doing it, they see the difference, because it's actually them that has the clutter as well. And so that in itself is creating a boundary. And then you'd be surprised, the other person starts doing it. So you really set the tone when you set those boundaries, because then the other person subconsciously, it creates a new landscape. And then they start setting healthy boundaries as well. So it has a nice positive ripple effect.
Yeah. And I see, like my mother, for example, before we moved her to Texas in 2021, she says, oh, well, I had so many outbuildings and so much of a house to just fill up worth of stuff. And she did. She just filled it up worth of stuff. She never got rid of anything. She never addressed anything.
Mm-hmm.
So then she resisted moving for a really long time because she didn't want to address it.
And that's a big job.
She didn't want to address either the stuff or, the mental stuff that needed to be unpacked and let go. And, it kind of saying, okay, this is non-negotiable. You're moving to Texas, this is it. You're not going to stay up here by yourself 2,000 miles away, not dealing with stuff. So then I kind of came in and I dealt with her stuff for her. So that set up a cycle that now I'm having to deal with.
Okay.
Because it set a precedent that Erin's going to deal with my stuff.
Interesting. And that's a hard one, because in some ways it's like, okay, let's move this out so you can see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's helpful, but then it always comes back, and that's a huge part of the work I do. It's like, what needs to change so that it doesn't come back?
Yeah. Now, what's nice is now I'm saying that she's really adopted more organized. First time in her life she's ever had to organize anything.
Oh, nice.
Now she's a much smaller place. We downsized her in increments. You're like, okay, now she's really excited, loves her place, but she's actually being very organized for the first time. She's so proud of herself.
That's fantastic.
We're still dealing with Erin's going to deal with my stuff, though, because she has all this other stuff that she can't fit in her place. So Erin's going to deal with that.
Okay. And is it in storage?
In storage, yeah. And I'm like, if you're not using it, why do we have it? Right?
Yeah, it's the emotional attachment.
And I don't think I should be dealing with it.
No. If I do like a once a week, hey, let's go down to the storage and get rid of, one box worth of stuff. And sometimes, a lot of the time, I find that people, once they share the story of the item, they can let it go. They just need to be able to say to another human being, I had this sweater, I bought it here, I really liked wearing it, and then they're like, okay, I'm done. And then they can let it go.
Right.
So just being that witness to the story is very powerful.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from folks who, if you feel like some of the items you have around your home and in your life, maybe in your office, if you're going back to the office, it has a story. Right? Yeah, I mean, I look around and I'm going, yeah, there's maybe a few things that have a story, So.
Ooh, bless you.
Excuse me. That one snuck up on me. So, I look around and go, okay, well, I'm looking at a chair over here beside my desk. It's a very comfortable wood chair. I know it sounds counterintuitive. It's one of those you slide into, and then you can't get out.
Oh, nice.
And they have the arms, has a lovely armrest. It's my grandfather's favorite thinking chair.
Oh, that's so nice. So that's sentimental.
So that's a really nice story. And it's a comfortable chair. So I'm like, yeah, I'll keep the chair. But I had to let go of a lot. When we moved my mother, I had to let go of an 80-acre family farm that I grew up on.
Oh, wow.
I had to let go of 3 families worth of stuff, material goods, both sets of great-grandparents, my grandparents.
Oh,
and wow.
Mothers. That's challenging.
I had to process all of that. Some of it, I admit, I didn't. I just dumped it on the new owner. I was like, look, I don't even know what's in that barn. I'm not looking in that barn.
Yeah.
You deal with it. I don't care what's in that barn. But, just processing all of that, you go through and you have to make decisions. And a lot of it's emotional. Okay, how attached am I to this object? And do I need to bring it into my life? Right. What's the ROI on that?
Especially if it's something like historical and family, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, Harriet says people need help. Yes, being able to let go is key. Saying goodbye. She said, Marie Kondo helps with that. Does this spark joy? Is that the woman that does this spark joy? Yeah,
I'm not. I appreciate aspects of her process. By going by category and just really checking to see if it's something that's important to you. However, it doesn't address the root as to why you had it in the first place. And I prefer to do value setting first, because that's the foundation of whether or not to decide what is it you're trying to create in your life, and does that object match what you're trying to create in your life right now.
Yeah. So speaking of, that's a good springing off point. Before we wrap up the show, I'd really like to know a little bit about your process and maybe what's behind it, so people tuning in either now or later listening to the podcast will understand, okay, if I'm looking to align not the only the inner path, but also the outer path and making that strong correlation, what does that look like? What's the process at a high level that I can kind of step through that will help me?
First, it's, as I mentioned, the first step is really just what are your values and what do you want to create in your life and what's your life purpose? And again, like I said, that can evolve and that can change. And then from there, it's making a plan and it's going, okay, well, what do I need to address in my physical spaces to make that happen? What needs to change in how I'm spending my time? And then lastly, looking at habits and routines and beliefs that need to change. So once that plan, usually I just do the space first and then kind of put the other ones on hold. And then it's minimize. That's the third step. And that means decluttering your time, your space, your beliefs that isn't serving you, anything that, there's no longer a purpose for it. And is a distraction. Because that's another big one. Is this a distraction for you? And then the next piece is, okay, well, step 4 is like, let's organize what's left. And do we need to add anything in? Now that you've gotten rid of all these things and the dust has settled and you're like, okay, I think I need to add this into my life, whether it's a physical object or something that you're doing with your time. And with that comes boundary setting. So when the decluttering happens, it's so much awareness around attachments, awareness of beliefs, thoughts that you've been having. And then it's looking at, well, how do I need to set boundaries so that clutter doesn't come back?
Right.
And then the last step is looking at, okay, let's look at habits, routines, lifestyle, beliefs that need to change so that we can maintain this process. And it's cyclical. You could literally go through this process every day because it's doing like a little mini inventory, like what's important to me? What am I focusing on? What's my plan? Does something have to go in order for that to happen? How am I going to organize myself? And what routines do I need to support me? And so it continues.
Yeah, that's amazing. It makes so much sense. And it's constantly amazing how that something superficially simple you think of, or, oh, well, I'm decluttering or I'm organizing my house, how much that's really tied into so much more who we are as a person, how we show up, the behaviors we want to promote, and those we need to let go of to better serve our purpose in our life. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Guest on the show today. And thank you all, for those of you who are tuning in either live or watching the replay later. Just know that if you have questions or insights, if you comment on the live replay, we'll be sure to see it. And if you're listening to the podcast later, feel free to reach out to you. Now, how can they reach out to you, Tonia?
They can check out my website at Time and Space Solutions, or they can email me at Tonia@Time and Space Solutions. Either way, feel free to reach out.
Great.
And I can also book a clarity call. I have that on my website as well. I offer a free 30-minute clarity call.
Perfect. And they can see you on LinkedIn at Tonia Cordi, Cordi.
Yes.
Right. Perfect. Wonderful. We'll definitely have those in the show notes as well. And make sure to add that as a comment so those people tuning in, whether on LinkedIn or YouTube or what have you, can reach out to you easily. We want to make sure they can reach out to you easily. Now on YouTube, of course, you have all the links there available. LinkedIn is a little bit more particular.
Yes, I know.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure again. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful conversation. We've learned a lot, really dived in some areas I really haven't necessarily thought about or explored in the physical space and how that really intersects with the internal landscape, if you will. So the external landscape reflects what's going on. And it's been a pleasure, again, having you all tune in live, or if you're watching the replay or listening to the podcast. I really appreciate you. Until next time, my friends, keep elevating.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in on the Career Coffee Chat podcast. It's been a pleasure. Feel free to reach out to me. My email is coacheurban@gmail.com or tweet at coacheurban, Instagram coach.eurban, or reach out to my Facebook group, Elevate Your Career. So I'd love to learn more about you, hear your insights, and what questions you have. You can find out more about me at coacheurban.com. And don't forget, please do reach out on LinkedIn. You can find me at Erin Urban. Until next time, cheers. Here's to caffeinating your career.